was a hot time in the city. Big Boy knew I was on his tail, but the bank robbery would have to wait. Smiley Pete was found in an alley with a most peculiar injury, but the bloody pants wasn't the fatal blow. It was the throat full of gefilte fish. I knew things weren't kosher in the Yiddish Quarter. I had to rough up a local hood they called the Golem before he gave me an address. It was the deli at 4 and C. I was expecting a hot reception, but not having to dodge a 6-pointed throwing star that nicked my throat. It was clear there was going to be big trouble in Little Judah.
Vig Eights, Mr. Tracy. I was expecting ye.
I never expected to see a rabbi with a trench coat full of scalpels. You must be one of Big Boy's goons.
Jawohl, that's true. I heard of his troubles with you.
He tried to nail me with an uppercut, but I was no klutz. I dodged. You're in over your yarmulke. You ought to schlep on home to your bubby. But he continued his spiel.
It's too late, you putz. Big Boy's all verklempt, and I'm no schmuck. It's your turkis or mine.
He threw some matzo balls at me, but it was a feint. What I didn't see was the 5-day-old bagel behind it. It hit me like a rock. I crumbled like dry halva. You got the drop on me, mocker. What's your name?
Pfeh! You dicks are all the same. Your chutzpah is matched only by your ugliness. And when you need a dick cut down to size, you're called Demoyle.
He stood over me, scalpel in hand. I knew he was going to take more than just a little off the top. I looked and saw the throwing star that barely missed my jugular. I threw it, disarming him. I lunged forward and I gave him the works. He was toast.
Okay, you got me, you putz. I did it.
You had a good run, Moyle, but you met a dick that finally fought back.
Gamer needs food badly.
Let's go!
Order up! And you're back in the kitchen with game connoisseur Mike King.
And Sous-Chef Ivan Kaproth Jocelyn.
Yep, Brandon is out on assignment, meaning that he's working and just too damn busy to play games and talk about them with us. But he's still alive and he's still a part of the show.
Well, we think he's alive anyway.
Yeah, there's like a big cloud of smoke and we assume that it's him just...
That's right.
That he's okay and that he hasn't spontaneously combusted.
Someone had to produce it. We're reasonably sure he's alive.
Yep. And so as you can probably tell by our introduction, the game that we're playing is Dick Tracy.
That's right. Your grandfather's father's character. The old-time detective.
Yep, this game was released in August of 1990, which is about 6 years into the Nintendo's life cycle, and about 2 years before it was completely gone. Well, the last game was Wario Woods for 94,
Yeah,
so...
but still halfway through, a decent way into the life cycle.
Yep, and I have to say, this game, I'm glad I played it, even though I found it to be frustrating. But
yeah.
Let's just talk, for like you said, it's our grandfather's father's favorite hero.
That's right.
So, Ivan, how about you tell us a little bit about who is the original Dick Tracy, which really sounds like an instructional book for pornography artists.
That's right. Or a pseudonym for a guy who likes to go out in the snow and write his own name. Yeah, so this game came out, as you said, in 1990. It was developed by Real Time Associates, published by Bandai. It was a marketing tie-in along with other releases on many other platforms, Sega, Master System, so on. It was a marketing tie-in to the movie starring Warren Beatty that came out in that year. But the game itself, the NES game, was loosely based off of not the movie, but the comic strip, which started way back in 1931. So it starred Dick Tracy, much as you see in the game, a detective originally called Plainclothes Tracy.
Wow, suddenly Dick doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, right. Basically going around like a Batman before Batman. Officially licensed, sort of connected with the police, but sort of independent. Going around collecting clues, beating up bad guys. And I don't actually know when the comic strip ended, but for some reason they chose to go back to that rather than tie in with what the movie was doing.
Well, the answer to that is that it's still running, according to Wikipedia.
Wow. That's news to me. I had no idea. I actually don't... I'm very happy that they made the decision to go off the strip, though. Going off of the movie certainly has been done so many times, and especially on the NES, done so many times poorly. Going off of the comic strip, which is going to be a great deal more rich in source material, gave them a lot of freedom. More bad guys to choose from, a bigger world to create.
Yeah, there was it's definitely, yeah, I'm looking it up on Wikipedia. It's still going along. It says that the Tribune Media Service announced that Locker was retiring from the strip and handing the reins to Joe Staten and Mike Curtis, guys that worked together on Scooby-Doo, Richie Rich, and Casper the Friendly Ghost. And their first strip was in 2011, and they've reintroduced characters from the 40s to the 60s, including a second Mr. Crime, a reformed mole, while introducing more deformed and grotesque villains such as Abner Cadaver, Panda, and the Jumbler, which sounds like he just gives out clues in anagrams.
Right.
And it says they've also brought back all the gadgets and plot elements of the 60s space era, although the reintroduced Moon Maid is not the same as the original. She is a human genetically modified to resemble the original Moon Maid and is christened Mista Chimera, which is, wow, and placed under Diet Smith's care. There's a guy called Diet Smith. They've also done crossovers with cameos from Popeye and Brenda Starr, reporter, and a long sequence involving Little Orphan Annie. So apparently, this sounds great.
Yeah, right.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's escaped our notice. Maybe it's because maybe it's because nobody reads the newspaper anymore.
Yeah, that might be one reason. And the fact that the character is so far out of time. I can't believe that this is still going on. I mean, who knows Dick Tracy anymore? I mean, other than NES aficionados. I mean, all right, fair enough.
Oh man. And it says the first serial, everybody can know about it because the first serial is in public domain.
Yeah, right. It would be at this point, wouldn't it?
Oh, man. Yeah, so Dick Tracy had several appearances, like a 37 serial with 15 episodes with Ralph Bird. And then Dick Tracy, again starring Ralph Bird. And then Dick Tracy Returns, Ralph Bird. And then Dick Tracy, a 1945 film with Morgan Conway. And then it went back to Ralph Bird. And then there was the Dick Tracy Show, which had various voices, including Everett Sloan and Mel Blanc.
Oh.
So, man, this thing it has a vibrant past, and apparently, if you still read a newspaper, you have a chance to still read this. But now that we've established the... Oh, wait, what did you think of the movie?
I haven't seen the movie in forever. I liked it okay. I was, I think, 11 or 12 when it came out. So I didn't really have a great appreciation of what was going on. You know, no 10-year-old kid going to see some detective movie. But I remember the big plot twist. I suppose I can spoil it at this point. The true identity of the blank being Breathless Mahoney and being touched by the little orphan wanting to be Dick Tracy Jr. Yeah. It was an alright detective story. Didn't really stand out
And
much.
Madonna.
Yeah, Madonna being in it. She was still big in movies at the time.
And apparently Glenn Headley was his girlfriend, despite the fact that you had Madonna as Breathless Mahoney. I guess she wasn't in the... She just didn't register to Old Dick.
Yeah, she never does. Much like in the game.
Oh man, yes, we can talk about this game, and boy, that strikes me. Every time we get in it, every time Tracy has a little dialogue with Caprice, Mahoney's there, basically saying like, "You can frisk me anytime."
Right, or some variation, absolutely. And very heavy-handed. You got nothing on me, Tracy. Yeah, so why don't you get nothing on me?
Yeah, I mean, like, you might as well just say, "Hey, how about we see why they call you Dick?"
Yeah,
I mean, like,
that's right. That was the first draft, and then they ran it by Nintendo.
yeah, like, can you make it a little more subtle?
Like, come on, we're already running a main character with the name of Dick. Can we dial it back a bit? But yeah, you got the intro of the game starts out with that little cutscene, and I loosely call it a cutscene. It's just the three characters, Tracy, Big Boy Caprice in the middle, and then Breathless Mahoney on the right. And Tracy's basically saying, "I'm coming for you." And he and Big Boy go back and forth in between the cases, with Breathless Mahoney interjecting randomly those come-on lines, which is essentially her only role in the game. She comes in at one point as a suspect, but doesn't really factor in. So
Yeah, I thought that this game offered like variety in the suspects, considering how you have like a massive book. Like, it would be like Carmen Sandiego, where it like alternates based on evidence, but apparently it's always the same guys.
yeah, if you play it more than once, you'll find out that it's always the same guys. The first case always ends with numbers, the character numbers being the culprit. You know, the game always ends with Big Boy Caprice being the final culprit. But they'll give you, with each case, and there are 5 of them, they'll give you 6 suspects in the mugshots that you can look at the police station. Police station, kind of your home base. You're always able to go back there, look at the clues that you've collected, look at the mugshots, look at where the suspects were last seen, which is, of course, where they always are. You know, they don't move. So
these people are terrible at evading the police.
That's right. So Tracy gets an initial clue with each case. It'll either be, you know, the owner says that Lips Manless started this fire. You know, so you go to the Lips Manless file, find out that he's at 9th and D. And then you hop into your police car and you drive around the city. So that's the first mode of the game. You're driving around in a car around a relatively convoluted city map.
Yeah, this immediately reminded me of Roger Rabbit.
Sure. Or reminded me a little bit of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the third level where you're driving around the van.
Yeah, this game, I couldn't stand it. Which is sad because I thought it had it made some great attempts. It was basically L.A. Noire.
Yeah.
For the Nintendo.
Yeah.
You gather evidence, you interrogate, you make an accusation, and you arrest.
Yep. You're playing a detective, which isn't done very often, certainly not on the Nintendo. In terms of the concept, it was part of what made the game stand out for me. This was one that I had played, I suggested to you for the podcast. And I always kind of liked going around, catching the bad guys, gathering the evidence. But as you said, the game was not without its flaws. What were some of the flaws that you found particularly frustrating?
Well, Dick and his car apparently share the same life meter. So if your car gets shot up, you think you'd get out of it thinking like, oh, okay, well, I got to abandon the car and get into a building. No, like you get out of the car, you're on death's door.
That's right, and you've only got, I think it's 4 stars, and they divide in 2 every time you hit. So you effectively can get hit 8 times plus 1 will put you out of action, so 9 times. Well, and that's for the entire case.
Yeah, getting healed is not that easy to do.
No. In fact, there's only 2 ways to do it. You can, if you're at a single half point of health, you can go back to the police station and they will heal you another half point. Weren't they generous? The other way is to use a first aid kit. And you'll see, we mentioned already the driving around section of the game. When you go into the buildings, you go into a side-scrolling mode where you're punching or shooting, just hopping around in various platforms. And in the side-scrolling mode, you can occasionally find an icon that looks like a heart. And that's a first aid kit. You can carry 2 of them at one time. So in-game, you're able to use those first aid kits to restore all of your health. Which extends the game pretty well. I mean, you still need to be pretty good in your reaction, and it's going to take some practice to get through the game anyway, but those hearts are fairly often seen in the game, at least once per case, I would say.
Yeah, the driving is a little hard to figure out, too.
Yeah, you're always driving on the right-hand side of the road. But more difficult, really, is the fact that you've got these little snipers all over the place that you've got to watch out for. They will shoot either straight ahead or diagonal, and you'll have to get out of your car and shoot at them with your Dick Tracy sprite in order to get rid of them. Now, if you're standing behind your car, they actually can't get through it, but you still got to be careful. If you just try to drive past them, sometimes you'll make it okay, and sometimes they'll hit you. And as you said, they share a life meter with Dick himself. But more frustrating is this goddamn taxi cab that you'll be following along behind it. Maybe you're heading back to the police station. And you get down to the police station, you expect that the game is going to have the car coming out of the dead end that the police station is at and just have it go by you. No. You, if you're following closely enough behind it, get run over by the taxi and lose health. I mean, what game creates a feature that you're hurt not even by a bad guy? You know.
Well, it's New York, right? Those fucking cabs.
Oh, God. I can't tell you how many times, especially as a kid when I was first learning to play this game, I'd be following along, thinking I was safe. That thing would turn around. And you go faster than it, too. So it is possible, if you're following along behind it, for you to I can't talk. For you to run into the back of it. And again, lose health. So that I enjoyed the driving around section, but between the snipers and the taxi, you had to be a little more careful than I really wanted to be.
Oh, and like the worst, one of the worst parts of the driving is because you have to get evidence, right? And you have to find out where it leads to certain clubs. But you can't see these hints while driving. Meaning you have to like go back to your office to review the evidence, and you can never review what interrogated criminals told you.
Right. You're going to be able to review what they call clues. It'll literally say clue in the level where you're supposed to find these things. And you're able to review those at the police station. You got a notebook, an old-fashioned yellow-lined notebook, appropriate for 1930. You're able to review those, but as you say, you're not able to review people that you interrogate, which also are giving you clues that are important. My boss, numbers told me to go do that. Or, I unloaded that crate over at the 9th and D Pier. You don't have that.
No,
so you got to remember that.
You think it would just be simple, like have just like a number at the bottom you can access to flip the page?
Right.
So you can have like clues and interrogations.
Right. But you don't get those. And that is a definite mark against the game. You need those, especially back in the day. You didn't have the internet to go online and say, oh yeah, I got to go over to the library on 8th and J. You have to go back through the level and do it again. And God help you if you forget the clue that's left by the guy that you interrogate once per case, you get into a car chase. You'll come out of a building and it'll immediately dump you into a car chase where you're chasing down one of the bad guys who ambushed you.
And now you can shoot out of your car.
Well, yeah. Shooting out of the car is a feature that you always have. You can't take out those sniper guns,
which really would have made some sense.
Right. So the only time you're actually using that gun that they always give you is during these brief car chases, and they shoot you too, which sucks because there's no way to avoid it. You got to be following along, laying a whole bunch of gunfire into this car to get it to spin out and stop. In the process, you're probably going to lose a quarter or more of your health. You just can't avoid it.
In the side-scrolling levels, I have fun with these.
Right. So you get out of the car, you go into the buildings, library, bank, clubs, or what have you. And
and the jumping system. Try jumping on those tiny little platforms when they're smaller than you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not exactly the most nimble of detectives either. It's a pretty herky-jerky mechanic trying to get him to jump at the right time, land on the small space.
It's all them steak and potatoes.
Yeah. Now, I will say, most of the time, there isn't a significant penalty. If you're on a water level, for example, and you get into the water, you don't lose a life. They're basically, you only have one life, and they just dump you back out onto the street if you fall in the water. and you get your punishment is that you have to try the level over again.
Yeah, I sent you some of my gameplay experience, and like the sprites here are. Well, the police chief who gives you information is a terrifying motherfucker.
I know.
He's a demon.
It really is. Good news, bad news, doesn't matter. His expression never changes.
Oh, he's just got these wide, piercing blue eyes and like a furrowed brow. Like he's just ready to inhale your soul.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of your contact, in the world of the game. You bring in a guy and you get a clue out of him, he'll give you a attaboy, go get him. If you bring in somebody that had nothing to do with the case, he'll reprimand you. Just there for the contrivance of a plot. He doesn't have any real function.
Aside from scaring the fuck out of you.
That's right.
Even when he's congratulating you, he looks like he's just about to devastate you.
Yeah.
His eye is replaced by a blue orb and shadow.
I will say, though, at least the character had some features. If you're looking in the side-scrolling levels, except for Breathless Mahoney's sprite, Breathless Mahoney, one of the suspects, every single character is a palette swap of Tracy.
You're right. It was a whole city full of evil twins. It was doppelganger. It was doppelganger central.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is like the only time that these characters look different is when you finally get them in the interrogation room, and you've got Tiny Face, which is basically a testicle with a hat.
Yeah, I will give them credit. The sprite work, or not sprite, artwork, I don't know. The animation for the interrogation scenes with the Rogues Gallery was pretty good.
But again, like if you look up at the footage I sent you, basically you're in one neighborhood, basically like the Tetris Quarter.
Yeah.
Like it's just a room full of brightly colored blocks and squares. It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Some of the side-scrolling levels, were a little bit suspect, but.
And the weapons you use, because it's not just a gun that Tracy has. You also have something called tear gas. Except if you look at the video I sent you, when you throw it, there's no smoke. Like nobody falls over coughing. There's an explosion. And people just drop to the ground and disappear. So,
right. Well, people and animals.
Yeah, tear gas is just police slang for a fucking hand grenade, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it's your screen clearer. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the weapons in the side scroller. So you've got your base weapon, your punch, and then you've got a handgun with I think 40 rounds in it before you have to go back to the police station and reload.
Because you don't keep clips in the car,
right.
where you are.
Yeah, you're. On the other hand, you got a 40-round gun. Doesn't really match up in reality there either. But you've got also in-game, in the side-scrolling levels, a Tommy gun, which you can find, which will, on the plus side, add more ammo. And on the minus side, it will shoot it out at a faster rate. And to kill the guys that you're allowed to kill with the gun, the bad guys with guns, it only takes one shot.
So you fire 6 bullets.
That's right.
To do the job of one.
Right. So you're adding ammo, which is the only real benefit. Otherwise, he's just as dead with one shot or with 6 as he would be with one. So they didn't really think that one through. But you've also got another level.
And the best part is when you pick it up, you don't even hold the Tommy gun, do you?
No, you're right. It's the exact same shoot. The exact same animation when you shoot the Tommy gun versus the handgun. You have a little Tommy gun icon that you punch in order to pick it up, but after that, the only difference is that you're shooting out 4 or 5 bullets instead of 1.
Your handgun has the spirit of a Tommy gun.
That's right. Now, I will say the other in-level upgrade that you can pick up relating to your punch, the super punch, has a lot more utility.
This is where again it goes back to Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. So you punch this boxer's glove icon, and you get 10 super punches. Now you have to be careful because you can super punch the air and run out of super punches. Yeah, it is a limited resource in every sense of the word.
You can't even swing at the air. It's like, oh shit, I nearly broke my arm on that. I've only got 8 punches left.
Exactly. Yeah. So you got to be careful. But when you do connect with a bad guy, instead of him kind of falling over and disappearing, he will crouch down, flip back and forth, left, right, back again.
He'll spin.
And spin, going forward down the screen. He'll even go downstairs. As long as you keep him on your screen in eyesight, he will take out any bad guy that he comes in contact with.
He's a Koopa shell.
Exactly. Which is very useful.
It's like that's how you clear a screen of enemies.
Yeah. Certainly the more fun way, anyway. So you got those two attack mechanics, the punch and the gun. And they will take off health if you shoot an unarmed bad guy. So you got to be careful. You're constantly cycling between your gun and your fist. Being careful, of course, not to engage your first aid kit, as you're toggling through. You can do that. I learned to my dismay.
Yeah, the game's got pluses.
Yeah, it's a flawed game, but I have to say that there's a reason I suggested it. It was one of my favorites as a kid.
It's got the snipers. They don't respawn, so it's like one of the few Nintendo games where object permanence exists.
Yeah, which is nice. I mean, if you're going through in the beginning, you're thinking, "Oh God, these fucking things are on every corner."
What's
Some
the
of
point
them
of killing
have
them
3
if
or
they're going to show up again?
Yeah, some of them have 3 or 4 on every corner. It just all over the place. But from case to case, they don't come back. So if you want, you can just go around town slowly. Take out all of these snipers, and then for the rest of the game, the only thing you got to worry about is that goddamn taxi. But the game in general, I mean, it really stood out to me. I loved the theme. I loved the rogues gallery. They had how many villains? Probably a dozen or more. Very, I hesitate to say very interesting. I mean, grading on a curve, for the video game. Some interesting, certainly animations.
Everybody here has... what would it be, like palsy or like facial Tourette's?
Yes, that was how they made the characters seem quote unquote alive. They had to. They weren't going to have them do anything but sit there. They wasn't going to be a back and forth. No Ninja Gaiden style cutscenes even. So they had to make them seem something other than just a painting on a wall. So the lips would twitch, the eyebrow would go up and down, just the eyebrow,
Yeah, I think that, like, some of them would, like, shift their nose a bit.
Sure.
But they just keep doing it. It's like all these sprites are on a loop. Like, it's not like, oh, they do it once just to let you know that, this is in the painting. But no, this is...
That's right. But the Rogues Gallery kept it interesting. It had some flavor to the game. And as frustrating as some of the side-scrolling levels could be, there was enough variety that it didn't get too boring. It wasn't too monotonous. And as I said before, just the idea of playing a detective. You're used to playing, a ninja, or some commando or, puzzle games, dropping Tetris blocks down or something, but...
And now we know where they end up when they disappear. They end up on the pier.
That's right. But you didn't get to role play a detective very often, so this game is worth it, if for nothing else, for that.
Yeah, and, speaking of puzzles, the Game Boy version, which we're not going to do, has, at the end of each level, Dick Tracy would fight one of the villains, including Shoulders, Flat Top, and Prune Face, and then the player would need to solve a 12-piece puzzle using pieces found throughout the level to reveal a photo of the next boss to be pursued.
Oh, yeah.
And if you could do it within the allotted period of time, you get a bonus life.
Oh, there you go. Jeez, I can't imagine that.
That is...
I will say, this game, though, I did appreciate not having a time limit. So many NES games, needlessly had time limits per level. You didn't have time limits. You didn't have extra lives, so to speak. I mean, I would have liked a little bit more health, but you didn't have that limiting factor. You were just free as long as you were good enough to avoid damage. You were free to go around, for the entire case. And as an added bonus, at the end of the case, they would give you a screen showing the culprit behind bars and a code, password that you could enter in if you wanted to next time you started up the game. You didn't have to finish this game all in one go, which was not something that you could take for granted back in the NES days.
Yeah, so it definitely... And then the music.
Yeah, music was... There weren't too many tracks, but what there was fun. The cruising around music in the car, you just really had a feeling that you were in the film noir, the detective story. Doom 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 doom. Yeah, just really catchy. The in-game, the side-scrolling level as well, a little bit more active. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the game in general, flaws and all.
Yeah, it definitely had a good... It had good points to it, despite the fact that Dick Tracy looks like Curious George's owner.
It really does.
Which would have made a great tie-in, where Caprice kidnaps his monkey to keep him off the case.
Yeah, that's right. You never knew exactly what the man in the yellow hat did. Well, now you know.
Now you know what he was doing when Curious George was off, like getting in a hot air balloon or getting lost on the subway. The man in the yellow hat was taking care of business, keeping the streets above clean from filth.
Oh God!
Super punching assholes all across the room like a Koopa shell.
Yeah. So anyway, I would recommend anyone that enjoys these old NES games to give it a shot. It stands up, if you can accept its flaws. It's a fun game.
And if the gameplay is a little too challenging, like it was for me at some points, watch a gameplay video. You get to enjoy all the elements without the frustration.
Yeah, the ending levels. I mean, I will say they got a little bit. They got a little bit frustrating. You had in the early part of the game. I mean, the basic side-scrolling levels. The format doesn't change, but what you will have are gunmen that will shoot a lot faster. In the early levels, there's a set pattern, and you can duck. You can even duck and move forward a little bit. So if you wanted to, you could do this little dance up to the guy and punch him in the balls. Which was a way to avoid using ammo and fun. But later in the game, they're firing too fast for that. They'll also be firing from behind, sofas or what have you that you can't shoot through, but they can. And then there will be things that'll randomly fall from windows in some of the later levels.
Yeah, so, what is up with people losing flower pots on their trellises?
Or how many wall safes can they check out the series of windows at you?
Yeah, what are you doing throwing out your wall safe? It's just like, this wall... I got the new wall safe. I can throw out this old thing.
Yeah, right.
Kijiji won't... The internet won't exist for another 40, 80 years, so I don't have to post it online. I'll just throw it out, and whoever's cruising the alleys and the curbs will pick it up if they need it.
Right. Either that or you got a big boy employing a whole mess load of people whose sole job is to stand by the window in case Tracy comes by and they're holding the safe. You got $1 a day. You sit by this window and you wait for that dick to come by. Then you try to blow it away. Sorry. I couldn't let this podcast go without making at least one dick joke. As if we didn't do enough of it in the open.
I don't know. I'd like to see more adventures of Dick and the Moil.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised that they didn't throw that in. I mean, this came out in the 30s, so you'd think that anti-Semitism would be popular.
Oh, God, you had to go there. Yeah, I'm sorry to say in some cases it probably was, but...
I'd like to see another Dick Tracy movie. Who would you like to see as a modern-day Dick Tracy? And don't say Jason Momoa. He wouldn't need a gun. He would just crush everything with his hand, with his big arms.
I'd love to see The Rock tackle that. I mean, he's got the right build for it. And he's certainly popular enough these days.
Yeah, he could do that. I could see him with that personality. Just giving them the people's eyebrow whenever they do something. Whenever they do something untowards.
Oh, there you go. He could play a Contra. He could play maybe Big Boy Caprice, and he'll come in. He'll be doing the scene, and he doesn't move. He just does the people's eyebrow over and over and over again. Oh, man. So, anyway, I think that pretty well wraps up our coverage of the game. You got any substitutions, Mike? If you didn't want to play this game, what might you go play instead?
Shit. Well, how many games did offer, besides Ninja Turtles, what other games had the above city driving? Aside from that and Roger Rabbit. Did we just name the only two other things on the NES that did that?
Well, you had some other games that sort of did the same thing, like Blaster Master. It's certainly a lot more function in the driving feature of that game, but I think the Turtles really has to be the gold standard for a substitution. You're driving around from building to building, and inside those buildings you got the side-scrolling levels. The other game that you could play that doesn't have the driving so much, but the similar go after the rogues gallery of bad guys is, of course, the Batman game.
Yeah, so it all depends on How do you like your detectives? Do you want your detectives to be like Eddie Valiant, or do you want them to be a bunch of kick-ass mutants, or do you want them to be a traumatized billionaire orphan?
Yeah. So anyway, I would go with Turtles, but you got a few items, or a few games rather, to substitute in. How about a food comparison?
I don't know. Looking at Tracy, all I can think of is a banana.
That's pretty good. I for myself, I'm going to go off the board. Not a food item, but a cocktail that I had a couple of months ago. Hardly new. It's called the Sidecar, and it was first made somewhere around the end of the First World War. So roughly the same time period as this game. But just like this game, it holds up. It's a very enjoyable cocktail, and I would recommend it to anyone want to drink. Same as I'd recommend this game. So would you come back for seconds for the game?
No, but I am glad I played it.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I would come back for seconds. It might be a little bit of nostalgia talking, but I really enjoyed it. Kind of like go into a restaurant is going to serve you kind of a tough steak, but it's got great flavor.
It's something you don't mind chewing for about 3 to 4 minutes per bite.
That's right. That's right.
It's kind of like gum with sinew.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that about wraps it up for this episode. I had a blast.
Good. I did too. I'm glad we played it.
Okay, so thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll have Brandon back next time. But until then, the kitchen is closed.